And we're back in Inside the Ropes, and this coming Saturday, the guest that's with me tonight, he might not be sitting eating turkey that's left over from Christmas. He will be goring someone through a barricade or in the ring. It is the ECW Original, former ECW World Champion, WWE and TNA star. It is Rhino. Rhino, welcome to the show.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, man.
And before we kind of talk about Extreme Rising, that's obviously coming up this Saturday, you were actually in Scotland, where we're from, in October for an ICW show, and when we explained to the listeners that you were going to be coming on, a lot of people wanted to ask you about it, and just what was that experience like when you came over to Scotland, because the ICW crowd are quite rabid. What was your experience like when you came over here for that show?
Oh, I really enjoyed wrestling for ICW. I really enjoyed going to Europe and Scotland and everything, and yeah, it was great. I mean, just the crowd is intense, and it reminds me of ECW. So yeah, they were, and the promotion, a lot of great talent there, and from top to bottom. So it was a great experience.
And one of our listeners wants to ask, is there any chance we might see you back in ICW again one day for another appearance?
Yeah, most likely. ICW, they have a lot of great homegrown talent, and and obviously the ICW fans are very proud of the local talent and what they've accomplished, and they're tough in the ring, and definitely a lot of people over stateside, they like to go over for them. I know Colt spoke highly about ICW and stuff, and yeah, definitely I would definitely consider on coming back. It would be a great opportunity for me too.
And I guess kind of going back to when you kind of started out in wrestling in the late 90s, how did you get started? Were you a fan growing up, or was it an opportunity that came your way?
Yeah, I was I was a fan growing up. And then I just, after school, I never finished school. I just, it was something I wanted to do. And I found a school in Windsor, Ontario. And Scott Moore, Mickey Doyle, and Denny Cass, they train guys out of there. And Tyson Dukes currently trains guys out of the same school. And it's not a school where, they really advertise, because it's kind of like, someone has the passion, they train them, and once you're trained there, you have the ability to continue training as long as you want. And you have guys that have trained there years ago, like Alex Shelley and Saban. They'll still stroll in. I'll even go in and work out in the ring. So it's a good school. They try to turn out quality, not quantity, and so that's kind of how I got my start. So it was a lot rougher back then. The Can-Am Wrestling School was in a small building. The roof was very low. You couldn't do anything off the top rope or second rope, and learned a lot of mat wrestling.
And what do you remember about, obviously ECW is when you kind of first became recognized nationally, I guess, and when you first went to ECW and you first came out in front of that crowd that's everybody still talks about, did you expect it from sort of seeing it before, and what was the experience like in your first night?
Oh, the first night, it was somewhere in Pennsylvania. I can't really remember. The crowd really didn't know me, so it's kind of like had to go in there in my style. They grabbed onto real quick, that rough, intense style. Mm-hmm. And first time I wrestled in the arena, the crowd there is pretty intense, and they grabbed onto me real quick too there, because at that time they seen a couple of my matches on TV. So, and then they were filmed in other arenas, and then then matches. But first time I wrestled inside the ECW arena in Philly, they'd seen me a few times. So I had a match with Christopher Daniels, and they really liked that match. I think we were the first match too. So they were I think they were chanting, "We want more." Not more of the match, but more wrestling too. So, but anyways, yeah, Paul really loved the match too.
And when we had mentioned that you were coming on, a few of our listeners, they wanted to know if you still have the ECW belt that you obviously famously had when the doors closed.
I did have the heavyweight belt. The TV belt was stolen out of the locker room. And yeah, you could say I still have it. So
cool. And when you came into WWE, what was the kind of initial plan for you when you came in, and did you have a lot of influence on being able to sort of creatively, into your character?
No, I was just like, hey, so Edge and Christian, they we're all buddies. I think they said something like they wanted me to be their brother, and Edge was like, no, like, people know him as Rhino, and they know we're buddies,
Mm-hmm.
like just tag him along with us, use him as our muscle. And I remember the first promo I did with him, it was live, and I just shit the bed. But, yeah, it was, because I was just so nervous, and I didn't know, like, exactly what they want. They were comfortable, but, yeah, I wrestled a few, on the road for a little bit, as on dark matches and stuff, and Steve Lombardi. He was the one that gave me the gore as a finish. I used to use it in ECW as a cutoff, and I used to use a pile driver as a finish. But I used to be really creative, like going people through tables and shit like that, and pile driving people off the ring apron through tables in ECW. And then I was working with Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, on a house show loop. And then I'd hit him with the gore, and then I'd pick him up and do a TKO. And then the second night he goes, just hit me with the gore and pin me on that. Because if you pick me up for TKO, it don't get a big reaction. And I thought, well, maybe you just don't want to take it. But he was right. Like, the gore would get a big reaction, then I figured I'd set up for it in the corner, and then, the rest is history. So,
I guess shortly after you came into the WWF, they started the invasion angle with WCW and ECW and the Alliance. When that was all kind of kicking off, what did you think of it at the time? Was it kind of widely known that it was going to be a short-term thing that they were going to do, and how did you feel about it when it was kind of pitched to you that that's what was going to happen?
I was just like, whatever. Like, I'd talk to Paul, and Paul would kind of, like, give me, like, oh, this is what we're going to do for today. And, like, I really like going to work. I'll throw ideas out. Like, if people like them, they like them. If they don't, my feelings aren't hurt. Like, if I think of something that might work for someone, I really, like, writers are more of an influence in the wrestling than when I first started, I think before they were bookers, so the writers are kind of like the bookers too, if that makes any sense. But when I first started there, it was kind of like, it was a joint effort, it seemed like. But I never really got, I'm, wrestling, doing what I love. I, built kind of a, I don't know if you want to call it a character, but a style in the ring that, is pretty easy to book. And some people don't know how to book it. Some people do. And, a right for it, I should say. But I just go do my thing, and, I'm professional, and that's that. I really enjoy, doing what I'm doing. So I never really got into that, like, behind the scenes stuff,
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I only kind of learned about recently, I hadn't heard about it, was apparently back in 2003 there was a scenario where Vince McMahon came out to the ring during one of your matches, and I was wondering if you could tell us that story and what happened.
No, like, before the show, like, he was on the house show loop, and anyways, he said something like, oh, you can't do anything wrong in the match, just call it out there, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, So Nassau Coliseum is a tough building, right? So we were out there, and, like, the jury won't call shit. Like, you heard the boss, right? So anyways, like, we went out there, and then, like, the jury, like, and then some other agents was like, oh, if they chant boring, just don't do anything. Just sit in the hold. So anyways, you're getting mixed directions here and there, which I've worked with Tajiri, 1,000 times. And then, like, he came out, and the funny thing about it is Vince goes like this. He kicks us out of the ring, and I thought he was just like, okay, let's see what they do if I throw a monkey wrench in their match. I thought he was just working, right? So I'm like, what are you going to do, fire me? And he called Brian, and then he tells Brian to tell Jerry to drop kick him and go to the back. And then, like, I'm like, oh, fuck, he's serious, right? So anyways, go to the back, I go take a shower, and then after I take a shower, I talk to him. He's like, if they're chanting boring, he wasn't pissed off at me or anything, you know. And then I think he kind of felt bad afterwards. But, like, I go, you told us not to call anything. And to Jerry was nervous, so he wasn't doing anything. So we just called the finish. And then we're actually getting ready to go into the go-home spot anyways. So he goes, but you had them in a hold. And then I'd have them fight out, and then I'd, you know, stop them, put them in the hold, and, you know, I'd yell at the fans, you want to see boring, I'll give you boring. He's like, the fans are chanting boring, they're bored. And then I go, well, if they're bored, you know, like I was told by one of your agents, I didn't say any names, and I refused to, but the agent's still there that I know of, who I consider him a friend, but I go, I was told by one of your agents, you know, if they're chanting boring, sit on the hold. And then Vince's reply was, well, that agent wasn't a main event talent. Well, at that time, there was no agents that were main event guys, right? So, you know, would it like, you know, so anyways, what else? And then I said something like, well, if they're bored, they'd be sitting on their hands talking to the person sitting next to them, you know, but obviously they're watching the match, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I was working a heel at the time, so, but I mean, in a situation like that, and I actually got a very good payoff for that match. Because that's why I think he felt bad, you know. So.
Right. And obviously, this Saturday you're going to be a part of the Extreme Rising event, and you were a part of the show last year as well. Where do you sort of see the company going? I mean, obviously they're taping television now. Is this something that you think could take off? Is having the word extreme in there going to help them or hurt them? How do you kind of feel about it all?
Oh, it'll definitely help them. You know, it's just we've had a few shows, a few successful shows. You know, definitely we're back at the ECW Arena. It'll be packed, sold out. You know, and it'll definitely be a hot crowd. I'm working with Crowbar, Devin Storm, and we had a match last time that was off the hook. And, you know, Devin Storm's one of those talents where he's like a Spike Dudley. You can literally beat him and beat him. I'm not saying beat him as far as winning the match. I'm talking about, like, beat him. Like, you can, like, really haul off and kick him, and it's like it don't hurt him. Like, he's like that rubber man, you know, that little toy when you're a kid, you can just fling around and he just goes back into the same shape. Like, like you pull his arms and they get all distorted, you let go and they go back into shape. Like, Devin Storm is what I can identify him like Spike Dudley. You could just haul off and kick him. One time I kicked Spike as hard as I possibly could in the ribs, you know, like lower ribs, stomach area. You know, not where, you know, with my toe pointed, I would have broke my toe. But anyways, like, and I come back and I'm like, you all right? He's like, yeah, fine, thanks. And apparently he would smoke weed before he'd go out there. That's what I found out later. Because I tell everybody, like, but I never seen him smoke, so I don't know if that's true. Like, but yeah, like, literally, it was like, I know I caught him here, I caught him there. I'm like, I'm just going to go and kick him really hard, like in the stomach rib area. And I heard him go, oh, like, I flat foot kicked him, you know, not in the back. You know, he was like on all fours, and I waffled him. I'm like, for sure he's got to say something like that was stiff, you know. And Devin Storm's the same way. It's just like, you can punch him and hit him and throw him through tables and, you know, throw him off the, like, ring through a table and crazy shit, and he just keeps on coming back. I don't know if I should be afraid or.
I don't know. I don't envy you in that position, but yeah. I mean, hopefully this Saturday is going to be a big success. We just had 2 fan questions. Darren Williams wanted us to ask you about Jay Lethal. I know you worked with him in Ring of Honor. He just wondered how you feel about him as a performer, and if you've got any funny stories about him because he can do so many impressions.
Jay Lethal actually came up to me one time, and it was the younger guys in TNA. And hell of a talent in the ring, and a good person outside of the ring. But he goes, hey, can you sign this card? And it had some signatures to like his nephew's birthday or something. And I go, yeah, sure. And it was at catering. And I went to click the pen, and it zapped me. He starts laughing. I'm like, you're a jerk. And it was him and Saban and Shelley. They were all up to it. They were getting everybody. And then literally a couple weeks later, he comes up to me and goes, hey, Rhino, I opened up one of your fan letters. I thought it was for me. I started reading. It was a very nice story how you talked to this guy for like a couple hours and really changed his life. And I told him, I go, yeah, right. I thought it was a joke. For a shoot. Like, I thought he was trying to get at me, right? And I go, get out of here, F off. He goes, no, I'm serious. Like, and then, like, I go, what did you put on there? Like, itching powder or something? Like, or am I going to open it up and, it's anthrax? Like, I know I wouldn't do that. But I'm telling him, well, like, leave me alone. Like, he goes, no, look, I'm serious. He opens it up and then, like, he holds it in front of me, and then I start reading, and I notice it's like a legit letter, right? So, actually, I still have the letter. It was I remember the person and everything. It was back in ECW, and it's funny how the letter got to me, because TNA, at the beginning, they weren't good at getting the fan letters to us. So. And
the last question we've got for you is one of our listeners wanted to ask, do you think you would ever end up back in WWE or TNA again, and where do you kind of see yourself going in the future in the ring?
Well, I like working with Ring of Honor, and I like working, independents and helping the younger guys out. I've been very blessed. God's blessed me, I don't know. I enjoy what I'm doing now. I'm looking forward to 2014. 2013 was a good year for me. It had its bad moments, as far as, like, I had a couple of friends that passed away, God rest their soul. But other than that, as far as in the ring and, and family, I was able to spend some time with them, and, and I was wrestling a lot too. So, and I enjoy wrestling and traveling, and I'm ready to hit the ground running for 2014, so. Maybe get back over there to ICW, kick some ass. Maybe make a run for the title.